Welcome to Football Today. I am your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Penik. And guess what? The Atlanta Falcons, Cousins out, Penix in. Justin, we want to hit this from a lot of angles. How are we doing?
I'm good, Bobby Skinner. To get all the questions out of the way, Michael Penix and I, we're not related. I asked him down at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. We interviewed him a couple months ago. We may talk about that a little bit. Down at the Senior Bowl, I asked him, do you think we're related? He said, I don't know, maybe, but I'm ruling it out. We're not related. How are you?
Have you done the 23andMe?
I have. It came back negative.
Yeah. So the Falcons have benched Kirk Cousins. They absolutely had to do this, right, Justin? I mean, Cousins is just done. Maybe after another extra year of rehab, he can get back to being better than what he is right now. I don't think this was like Matt Ryan level of bad with the Colts or even at the end with the Falcons or like Peyton at the end with the Broncos, but Peyton obviously has a superior mind where he was able to get by in those playoffs. I don't think it's that level, Justin, but it was just like he can't push off, right? He can't throw the ball, the way that he wants to, right? Not attacking down the field. They can only run play action out of pistol. Like, just couldn't do all the things that Kirk Cousins had done well in his career. Like, if this isn't just like, oh, Kirk Cousins, this is who he is. Like, this is not who Kirk Cousins has been. If they got Minnesota version of him last year, like health-wise, then they're definitely not making this move. But Kirk Cousins forced their hand. 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions in the last 5 games, and 1-4 with, and the 1 win was an escaping win against the Raiders. They basically probably threw away the division already. They're 1 game back of the Bucs. Now they have the tiebreaker for the Bucs, but the Falcons have the Giants, Commanders, Panthers, and the Bucs have Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. So the Bucs do have an easier schedule going ahead. Now all they need is the Bucs to lose 1 game and the Falcons to win 3 winnable games. But it may be too little, too late. But this just had to happen for the Falcons at this point.
Yeah. I guess we'll touch on first why the Falcons needed to make this change, and then I even want to ask you. Then we'll move to full-on Michael Penix. Does this change how you feel about the draft pick, et cetera, et cetera? But why the Falcons needed to make this change, man? You talked about them operating out of the pistol. 36.5% of their snaps this year. That's the 4th highest in the NFL that they've been operating out of the pistol. And we're going to talk maybe a good amount about the McVay branch of offense. That's what Zach Robinson is, kind of off that Sean McVay branch. I am sure that this offense wants to operate under center and utilize play action, and we see what they're doing with these outside zone runs with Bijan Robinson. You can't do that with Kirk Cousins' inability to move this year, and I think that's probably something that, I don't know when Cousins kind of fully came back and started to practice, but I'm sure that's something that maybe the team was shocked by, that, oh shit, we're not going to be able to run the offense that maybe we fully want this year because we have a quarterback that legitimately can't move. Cousins not being able to move and take play-action rollouts. It's taken play-action rollouts completely out of the offense. Forget even the outside zone stuff. Only 11 play-action rollouts this year for Kirk Cousins. That's the lowest the team has had since 2017 Big Ben, who also couldn't move. Kirk Cousins has also been like the man in play-action, but it's just been totally taken away from this offense because he can't move. And you even saw against the Raider game, and our producer Connor was talking to him on the way in today. He's a Raider fan, was watching that game, and Kirk Cousins on these outside zones can't even get the ball out there to these running backs when they're operating out of pistol. So it's even tough for him to get the ball out there. So there's a lot of other reasons why, Kirk Cousins not being able to use his legs of driving the ball in. He has the 4th highest tight window throw rate this year. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of quote-unquote arm strength because he can't put his legs into a lot of these throws and because the offense can be so predictable. So, they needed to make this move, and a lot of it is just because Kirk Cousins literally cannot move.
Yes, and again, it's not because of who Kirk Cousins was in Washington or Minnesota. It's coming off of the Achilles injury. He's not the same. It showed up early in the year, and they still have yard. They still have a lot of yards, even not the Falcons game where only had 100 or so yards, but even in these higher interception games, Kirk has thrown for yards. His mind is still there, and they have the weapons.
10th in yards per game.
And I think they have the offensive play calling is better, but it just hasn't gotten the shine because of Kirk Cousins' limitations. All that stuff is there. It's just I just worry that it is too. I mean, they went 1-4, and I understand making this decision is not easy because of the investment they made into him. Which we're going to talk about that when we talk about the decisions with bringing in Kirk and Penix and all this. But one touchdown, 9 interceptions, and you go and watch the interceptions because interceptions can be a lying stat at times. Remember like the year Dak led the league in interceptions a couple years ago. It's like, okay, but he's never done that before, and like 5 of these were tipped up, and it was a low year for interceptions total in the NFL. With this, almost every single interception was just god awful ugly, right? Where it's just he's popping a football up, he's throwing into triple coverage. It was just really bad stuff, and you didn't have the touchdowns to go with it. With the only one, I think he limited the run game, obviously limited the pass game. You just had to do this, Justin.
Yeah. Yeah, like guys like Drake London are coming out of their breaks before Kirk is even set and is fully dropped, before he's done with his drop back. So again, I want to kind of get to the Michael Penix part of this.
Let's do it.
Now
let's talk about the draft decision. How about that?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that Michael Penix, I feel like, is going to add this huge dynamic as a quarterback, but what he's simply going to do is he's going to open up the playbook more because he is a capable moving quarterback, and even though he's not a mobile quarterback, he's a capable moving quarterback that I think some of the core identity things that Atlanta Falcons offense wants to do, they're going to be able to do it a lot more now, and I think they're going to maybe be able to do it better because it's not Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, we're not going into now we're not running and gunning and we're making throws on the run and like that's not going to be added with Michael Penix's game, which we'll talk about. But it's just like there were so many limitations because of the Kirk injury, and then we know Penix can make basically almost all the throws. He's got the strong arm. So, do you want to talk about Michael Penix in general as a player before we talk about the decision to sign Kirk and then draft Michael Penix for the Falcons?
No, let's start at the beginning. Let's not Quentin Tarantino this and work our way backwards. I want to hear your thoughts because it was on this show and you had a clip that did well after the draft about the decision to draft Michael Penix. Now, obviously, none of us really knew, and obviously the Falcons didn't freaking know just how physically limited Kirk Cousins would be this year. So now that we know, and now that we agree with this decision with 3 games left for them to bring Michael Penix into the mix, does that change the way that you view the draft pick, Bobby?
No, because we talked about it in that draft pod, even talked about it a good amount in the offseason, especially with some guests, is that I think no matter what way you paint this, the Falcons messed up somewhere along the line. And not just a little mess up, but had a major mess up because Kirk Cousins wasn't on their team. They signed Kirk Cousins. They invested in this. There's been this like media spin won by the bot for insiders like, man, they're prepared. And then you also have the people who are just so over infatuated, like, oh, just quarterback, just take shots, just draft a quarterback every year type of people. Those people like it. You gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year, $180 million contract. You weren't forced to do that. You also weren't forced to pay. You didn't have to do that to have Michael Penix sit for a little bit if that was your plan, right?
Right.
Like, you could have signed a different quarterback and also let Michael Penix sit for a little bit. Russell Wilson was out there. You could have made the trade for Justin. Again, not guys that are that are going to be killing, changing the world. But at the same time, neither is Kirk Cousins. You're benching him. But the difference is those guys aren't going to cost you 4 years, $180 million. Now, obviously, it's not all guaranteed, but it's basically a 2-year deal. They have a if they cut him, which I don't know if anyone's going to trade for him, they have a $65 million dead cap next year. $65 million dead cap. Like that to me is they screwed up terribly on this quarterback contract. Terribly. Okay, so that's why the whole Michael Penix, like, oh, well, it may work out in the end. Like, yeah, if Michael Penix ends up good, it may work out in the end. Guess what would have worked out in the end regardless? Michael Penix. Then you didn't, we're not sitting on a team that Kirk Cousins been their QB for a long time, and they went out and signed him as a win-now move, and he can't win now for them.
Yeah, I think the decision to draft Michael Penix looks better, but what looks exponentially worse is signing Kirk Cousins. Where now Kirk Cousins is going to go down in NFL history as the most expensive bridge quarterback ever. Like that's what this is. I don't mind now seeing what Kirk Cousins is, and this doesn't. I still think this is very bad process by the Atlanta Falcons.
It is. They should have just used that money elsewhere, signed an actual bridge quarterback, and drafted Michael Penix, right? So again, you have everyone spinning it like, oh, Falcons don't look so crazy after all. It's like, yes, they do. They just fucking spent. They're gonna spend $90 million on a guy who started 14 games for them. And
now my opinion's flipped. Whereas the draft day, I'm like, well, why are you drafting Michael Penix when you signed Kirk Cousins? Now my opinion's flipped, where it's like, well, why did you sign Kirk Cousins? And you know what makes it even worse, Bobby, is that this costed them a 5th round pick because they tampered with Kirk Cousins and over $250,000 in fines, which I guarantee you they don't fucking care about the fines. But this costed them a 5th round draft pick as well because they tampered with Kirk Cousins because that's how bad they wanted to sign him.
Yeah, that's how bad they want to sign him, that he signed the minute free agency started, Justin, and they didn't bring him in for a workout to see how he was doing physically.
I don't even know if he was cleared.
He wasn't. But still, like, you could have gotten somewhat of an idea. Like, they couldn't have given him a physical or anything like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a reach on my point. But just like, again, like, if you listen to our draft day, our first round recap pod, it's like, it's very stupid. It's very stupid for the Falcons to sign Kirk Cousins and then draft Michael Penix. Okay? Do one or the other. That was always the argument against the Falcons. Do one or the other, and you're putting yourself like admit Kirk Cousins. You didn't tell Kirk that you were going to even think about doing this. He was bothered after the draft. You just created a mess. And you know what? If they drafted a bridge quarterback, or signed a actual bridge quarterback, they could have went to Michael Penix a little earlier and maybe even gotten into the playoffs because they basically had a walk-in when the Bucs got all injured. And then Kirk Cousins has this stretch, and they lose 4 straight games.
Yeah, and we knew that schedule. I mean, coming into the year, we knew that we knew this Falcons schedule was just an absolute cakewalk this year. Number one, because you're playing in the NFC South, and number two, they did just have a cakewalk. You know
how the Falcons know they screwed up is because they played them this long into it, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't just bench this investment. Like, this was tough for them because this was not their plan at all. So. Again, Michael Penix maybe ended up looking great, and we look back at it, and it's like, we wasted a ton of money and could have brought in this free agent, but at the end of the day, we got our franchise quarterback, so we're happy. That's all fine and dandy, but that's never the argument against the Falcons. Like,
right?
I feel like a lot of times, whenever a team does get and again, I don't think Penix is going to be this. I think he can look good in this offense at times, but I don't look at the Falcons and be like, man, look at these geniuses thinking 10 steps ahead.
No.
This is not Jordan Love on the Packers. This is not the same situation at all.
No, they cost themselves a lot of money, and now they are in a situation where they are praying that a team will take on Kirk Cousins' $27.5 million base salary next year, and then I think the Falcons would only need to eat like 30-some million, 37.5 million next year, and then if they're lucky, they have no 2026 dead cap, and they just have to eat almost 40 million the next year. So, I mean, they better hope that a team wants to take that on, and then you're only going to get a 6th round draft pick back. You're getting a day 3 draft pick back for Kirk Cousins. So, Bobby, before we talk about what Michael Penix can bring to the table, since I think that's the really beef of this conversation, can I talk to you about something?
Talk to me about something.
DraftKings, baby. DraftKings has brought us every Wednesday episode of Football Today this year, and I appreciate that. Today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Grab your team's favorite jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football, and then even next week, we got football on all the days, like the Wednesday, the Saturday, the Sunday. Get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers, if you bet $5 on anything, you can get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you use our code FOOTBALLTODAY, staying on the action. Use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use promo code FOOTBALLTODAY. Bet $5 on any wager, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code FOOTBALLTODAY only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did.
I had a thought that I want to talk about. So Dan Patrick, people were listening to the Dan Patrick on the feed Wait till the end of the show because I want to get something national, Justin. That has to do with us. All right, but let's talk about the Michael Penix of it all, because at the end of the day, they're just making a change of quarterback. So, I'll be honest. So we are New York Giants fans, and so we have the pulse of the team. From the Giants fan point of view, it's like, let's see who they passed on with Michael Penix. From my point of view, I'm like, let's see Zach Robinson without the most limited quarterback of all time. But let's talk about Michael Penix as a player, Justin. We did a lot of work on him. We did our full quarterback draft previews last year. We interviewed him in Mobile, Alabama. He looked like the best quarterback down there with Bo Nix. He can read defenses. He sees the rotations that defenses use and has good recall to come back to a play when he sees something, a defense that got him on something. He's got a strong arm, right? It's not this crazy Josh Allen type arm, but he has a strong arm. He's fairly accurate with a clean pocket, and he's aggressive. He throw the ball deep 21% of the time. And another thing that can be a good thing and a bad thing for him is he's not going to take sacks. He will get rid of the ball whether it's just, hey, my internal clock is up, let's throw this ball with whatever I got's the best option, or throw the ball away. But that can also harm him, right? He throws, especially when there is real pressure and not just a play's kind of, falling apart. He'll throw the ball in harm's way. He had 11 interceptions in 15 games last year, 9 of 15 games with an interception. And when pressured, he will panic, and it's not just decision making. The accuracy suffers greatly when he's pressured because he doesn't have the creation part to his game. There's just no creation outside the pocket with his legs. That being said, though, I think this is a great fit for somebody from the Sean McVay tree and Zach Robinson with this running game, with these weapons, because despite the fact that Kirk has been limited, Kirk has thrown for 3,500 yards this year. They're 6th in passing yards. They're 12th in rushing yards. They're 9th in yards per play. They're 7th in yards per drive. At one point this year, Darnell Mooney was 4th in receiving in the NFL. At week 9, he was 4th in the NFL in receiving yards. Whenever we did our midseason All-Pro, I was like, oh my God, Darnell Mooney is up here? And Drake London was right behind him. This is a good spot. It kind of reminds me of maybe we could see what happened with Jared Goff early with the Rams, where it's a little bit telling him where it is, running play action. They'll be able to do that more. If they face a team that's going to pressure them like crazy and get after them and disguise coverages the way the Michigan did last year in the national championship, it'll be a mess. But I think he's getting into a pretty nice situation. This is why we love the Falcons, this year with the quarterback, and having to play the Giants, who have almost every starting DB is injured, except for they're probably one of their worst starters in Jason Penik. The Commanders, who despite their success this year lack a lot of talent on defense, and then the Carolina Panthers, the worst passing defense in the NFL. This is a nice landing spot for Michael Penix to start his career.
Yeah, absolutely. That offensive line is still holding up pretty well, and true pass set grades and stuff like that. We know the talent that they have there. I love Drake London for this offense and this quarterback in particular. Drake London, I think, is up there in terms of contested catch guys that can go up and get it. With a George Pickens. Darnell Mooney somehow has 4 yards per reception more than Drake London. I hope that changes. I hope Drake London.
I kind of like that dynamic where London's their main guy and Mooney is he's going to get those big plays. You see that with a lot of teams where they have their number one, who's their go-to guy, and then their number 2 is the guy who's going to average 15 yards per catch. Yeah.
And you talked about Penix limiting sacks in college, which that was very true. I have that same note. What I think Penix is going to bring, and this is, again, what Cousins did not bring, and this is what makes Penix different. You're not going to see the plays like Lamar and Josh Allen and Mahomes where we're running around and extending plays like that, but I would say, the ceiling and what you want to strive for is Michael Penix can be a guy maybe like a Joe Burrow, where you can extend plays inside the pocket. I don't think he's going to be doing that outside the pocket and making guys miss and extending plays that way. But that is a guy that can extend plays inside the pocket, and that's going to have to be a key for him in the NFL. Can he stay calm? Can he stay cool? Can he stay collected in the NFL? Doing that, and even on plays where he's holding the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds, his pressure to sack rate was still impressively low. Where it's like, hey, you look like a guy like Caleb Williams, where you hold on to the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds. What in the world is going to happen? What are you going to do with the ball? That's been a little bit of an issue this year, right? Where Michael Penix in college was not an issue for him.
Yeah.
He is going to sling it.
The issue is like there's a guy like Josh Allen who like, his pressure of the sack rate is great.
It's like 2%.
And he's creating big plays out of it. With Penix, it's more of like, all right, we're just going to throw it. Or try and throw it away to avoid that sack, which is good. You don't want to avoid those sacks. But that's where it gets in harm's way. So, listen, I think this is a good spot for any young quarterback. I guess Michael Penix isn't the youngest guy, but any rookie quarterback. The Falcons, I think, are a very nice offensive structure. I think Zach Robinson can get a head coaching gig off these next 3 games. I'm someone who loves the Sean McVay tree. You saw hires like Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell get mocked in the moment, and guess where they're at right now? With
on the top,
a combined 5 losses on the year or whatever, maybe even combined 5 losses on the year. So I think he can get. I think this is a really good offense that was just like, man, Kirk Cousins can't do anything. Now Penix long term, I still, I didn't view him as someone that was worthy of the 8th overall pick. I view him as someone like when shit breaks down, it'd be one thing if like, hey, he had some turnovers in those moments, but the accuracy suffers when he's under pressure. Go back and watch that Michigan game. You don't want to judge a guy off one game, but when there's pressure and the picture on defense is not clear, the accuracy suffers. Like even the preseason game he played was pretty good. You saw some good moments in there, but you like, see if I can even find my notes. I went and watched every throw from that one game when we did on it, and it was like, man, the accuracy, like he's missed on like half of these throws. See if I can find my notes, because I actually charted it from that preseason game. But yeah, Justin, go ahead, say something while I find these notes. Yeah,
and confident that Michael Penix's arm, but the one thing that I wanted to add that I'm a little hesitant on is the quick game. I think we're going to see him sling it. We're going to see him sling it to Mooney. We're going to see him, even get Kyle Pitts involved. We're going to see him sling it to Drake London. But the one thing that I have a little bit of a question on is a lot of the quick game at Washington was short passes and screens to the outside. But utilizing the middle of the field and attacking all 3 levels of the field, that's something that you kind of need to do with the NFL. And it's not really what he did at Washington. I feel like a lot of it was towards the sideline when it's short. And then if it's long, again, you're attacking the sideline, you're going deep, you're going vertical in that grub offense. Just think of how many big plays was like, Michael Penix, and this is good on him. You're showing the arm talent, you're showing the accuracy, but it was kind of just giving his top 3 wide receivers, particularly Polk and, Romo Dunze, just giving them almost contested catch opportunities.
Which the Falcons have guys that can do that.
Was. Right, and they can replicate that for sure, and they could replicate these quick little passes too. You have these weapons. You have guys that are good with yards after the catch. So that is something that you can replicate, and in terms of Bobby's point about pressure, I think if there's ever a situation or if there's a game or a scheme that the Falcons feel like there's going to be a team that's going to bring pressure, maybe even the Giants. Like the Giants have a decent pass rush still, heading into this Sunday. I could very much see play action rollouts and getting him away from the pressure, and that's an answer to how can we get this guy throwing from a clean space.
Right.
Play action rollouts is the way to go. And again, they could not do that with Kirk Cousins.
Again, it's very similar to what the Rams did with Jared Goff, who had similar issues, where it's like when it's clean and the read's there, he's got it. When there's pressure, it breaks down. But like, my preseason, like that 9 for 16, 104-yard game, like, here's my note. Missed deep shot on 3rd down, but good read of safety rotation. Corner a little too wide. Deep ball versus cover 3. Guy gets beat. Nice ball. Ball sailed on an out route. Moved linebacker with a pump to hit dig over the middle. Missed deep on an alert. Good stick flat to get 3rd and goal at the 1, then missed the fade. Missed the check down. Flat behind the guy. 3rd down, almost intercepted. So, like, we didn't see him light the world up on fire in those moments, but even though you do see good stuff. So, 3 years from now, am I going to be like, man, look at this? I don't think so with Michael Penix, to be 100% real. But I think this is a great opportunity for him in these last 3 games, and I think the Falcons are a pretty good offensive situation that's been held back significantly by Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, we can even wrap this up by giving a little bit of a preview. What do we expect this Sunday, Bobby, going up against our New York Football Giants and what is a completely decimated defense? And if the Falcons are smart, Michael Penix isn't throwing the ball more than 16, 17 times this game because they should just run the damn ball.
Well, here's the issue. The Giants have started playing run defense very heavily since they lost Dexter Lawrence, and their DBs are terrible. Like, a lot of their touchdowns that the Ravens had were like their corners just playing the run way too heavy and guys getting behind them. So I think I think Penix can have a big. Their starting corners were in this most recent game were two guys who weren't on the roster last week, and then Isaiah Simmons, who's a linebacker. That's what their starting corner group was, and then a bad safety duo in Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock, or some people call him Justin Pinnock. By the way, go if you're listening to this from the go check out the first 12 minutes of our podcast Talking Giants. It's a little more national. It's shocking. It's going to be our most listened to episode ever because of how shocking the Giants are, how dumb they are. But let me say this: if he struggles against this Giants team, like you don't want to judge a guy off his first game, good or bad, right? We've seen the good, where you have the Will Levises, Daniel Jones, Marcus Mariotas, who light it up in their first game, and then look at them now. But I'll be disappointed if Michael Penix doesn't light up this Giants offense. Again, I don't need him to throw the ball 30 times, but he should be averaging 8 to 10 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
Hitting passes over the middle and have a touchdown or two. Yeah,
I agree with that.
But I'm excited I'm just excited for the Falcons offense to be able to run without just extreme limitations at the quarterback position, which is what they were dealing with. Like, it hurt every aspect of that offense having Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
And it's not because of who Kirk Cousins has been in his career, right? If Kirk Cousins is not injured, is there limitations? Because Kirk Cousins is not a great quarterback? Sure, but he's a pretty damn good quarterback. But when you have those physical limitations, it's just hard to do it. And I still think they did pretty damn well considering all of that. Justin, do you have anything else on this before we head out?
No, nothing else.
This is a fun episode. Get to fucking dive deep on a 30 minutes on just one subject. How about that? We appreciate you guys. We will see you on Friday. Until then, that is football today.